Welcome back to Media7. When WikiLeaks began its release of 250,000 US diplomatic cables this week, it came social media ready. Not only did the site suggest services through which readers could disseminate the news, it gave them a name to use, Cablegate, and hashtags to identify the content. It quickly became apparent that not every leaked cable contained some new American wickedness, and that some were just damn good reading. So herewith, the top five turns of phrase so far in Cablegate. Number 5. Prince Andrew displayed almost neuralgic patriotism when any comparison between the US and UK came up. Number 4. Gaddafi relies heavily on his long-time Ukrainian nurse, Galina Kolitsnika, who has been described as a voluptuous blonde. Number 3. Some stupendously fat guests were displaying their lesginkas for the benefit of 2 visiting Russian women. Number 2. An unnamed British Labour minister reportedly remains a bit of a hound dog where women are concerned. And number 1. New Zealand's incoming Prime Minister is one stone-relaxed mofo. He be Cold Lampignol. Well, yes, we actually did make up that last one, but who knows? And a lesginka, I must point out, is not a body part, it's a traditional wedding dance. John, do you ever get mistaken for Julian Assange in the airports?
Funnily enough, I did get that. Along with Doogie Howser, I get that quite a lot too.
But on a more serious level, did you find the fact that you had this connection with social media useful in trying to make head or tail of this WikiLeaks story? Because it was a hard one for mainstream journalists, wasn't it?
It was very tough, actually. You mentioned the Cablegate hashtag. Now, on the morning of the WikiLeaks breaking, it was all on the radio, and we came in and we had pressure right from the top of the chain, actually, to say, you know, we want the New Zealand angle on this, we want the New Zealand angle. So we were going down, we knew The Guardian had it and New York Times had it, so we went to those websites, you know, really struggling through this. We went to, obviously, the main website, and I turned to Twitter, and I just went, let's give it a shot. And I did the hashtag Cablegate, and it was going nuts. I mean, you guys would have seen it. It was just flying out, and the vast array of it was just crap, stuff that was no use at all. But there was the odd link. It was really just essentially finding the links, filtering out the links that you could open up, and there was, obviously you had to verify all this stuff once you'd gone through it yourself and break down the tables that were coming through. But I mean, that was essentially how we made headway on the story that morning when it broke.
Ben, do you do that? I mean, you're supposed to know about all this stuff. Do you use your social media connections for research and to find out information?
Definitely, and there's an adage on the internet that the way to get the true experts out of the woodwork is to say something incorrect. So I tend to unintentionally use that very frequently. You know, you just make a statement and you'll very quickly get the replies that correct you. And you know, an example in WikiLeaks is I did a quick search using Google to say anything with content Zealand in it, and there was only 2 results. So I said, oh, there's none of these cables in New Zealand, and then very quickly was correct 4 or 5 times. So well, no, it hasn't. The content hasn't been released yet.
People seem to be quite keen on correcting you on social media in general. Usually when you review the phone. What's that about?
It's the risk of having an opinion, I think, is the problem, and having 3,500 followers, it tends to, you have an opinion, you will get some people who, you know, haters or whatever you want to call them, that have a differing opinion. You just have to live with it.
But I think that's where Facebook especially is going to retain its importance. You know, for me, the like button is everything. I mean, that's a whole new generation of curators, basically. It's the only way we're going to get through all of this aggregated information and get to the stuff that we want to look at, is if it's been endorsed by our friends. You know, that key line from the movie, The Social Network, is when he says, it's cool, and you can't put a price on cool. As long as I think it retains its coolness, then we'll keep on using Facebook in a variety of ways.
Noelle, how often do you meet Facebook friends who you don't really know, and how does that go?
There's a few in the audience, Ross. And I've got at least one here. You know, as I said at the beginning, I am having to reassess my criteria, and I noticed Jose's piece. Maybe I need to say the only Facebook friends I'll have are people who will help me to move house on a Saturday. But something else that came out of my column was the idea that maybe I don't want Facebook for my best friends. Maybe Facebook is that virtual common room that Mr. Zuckerberg, you know, always wanted it to be. Maybe it's not a place where you relate to your nearest and dearest. And maybe that's how I want to use it from now on. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you think that like button is a Faustian bargain, though? You're basically telling Facebook your preferences and what you do every day in terms of what...
Well, this is actually a very interesting point, isn't it? Is that we are surrendering, to a degree, our personal information to Mr. Zuckerberg in return for these wonderful communications tools.
Yeah,
That's how it works.
What we're getting out of it is being heard.
Yes.
Facebook listens to us, and people can talk back to us. We get to be part of that conversation.
And I think that'll be what Google is scared of, and this is why they've tried over and over again with Buzz and Wave and everything else to get that same level of engagement and curation going on, because search, I wouldn't be surprised at all with Facebook Mail next year will be Facebook Search.
Is Facebook too big to ever be challenged now? Because I keep hearing of the next social media platform. Is it over?
Never say never, but the penetration is incredible. It's something like 85% in New Zealand claim to have a Facebook account, which is just unheard of.
Now, John, I have to ask you, there is a particular class of people who quite frequently pester me to be their Facebook friends, and that's politicians. There seem to be some very keen social media users amongst MPs.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. You're talking about the sort of division between who you allow into your Facebook zone, and I don't allow politicians into my. I have been asked a few times, and it is a personal thing, right? But I'm more than happy to follow them on Twitter, and happy to have them following me on Twitter. In fact, I want them to. I want to encourage it because there's a lot of interesting dialogue going on there. Tau Henare has probably been outed as the leading tweeter. And he's got some very colourful stuff that comes out and is worth.
Do you think his colourful tweets ever alarm his leader? Because he's somewhat unguarded, isn't he?
I don't. I mean, at this point, frankly, I'm not entirely sure that John Key actually understands what Twitter is. I mean, he has an account, but it's not him. There are some cabinet ministers who have been known to use their accounts. But, I mean, it's a good point. Tau eventually, or if it's not Tau, it'll be someone else that will trip up because we're watching them. And once they say something utterly off the wall and totally ridiculous, then it'll be at that point that there's a big reassessment, inevitably.
I wonder whether they understand what we expect high school students to understand, is that this is public. Do you think they all really understand that?
It's a different type of public, though, isn't it? Public on Facebook isn't public on the street, just like friends on Facebook. I think we need a new vocabulary for this. You know, a Facebook friend isn't a friend in real life, and yet you're friends with them on Facebook. Saying something on Facebook, should it be subject to the same, or on Twitter, should it be subject to the same standards as it is, you know, in
It's
discourse?
just as public, though.
For people with access, perhaps.
And social media is people, you know, and people make mistakes. And this is the thing is, perhaps we're seeing that, you know, politicians are real people. You sit beside them on the plane and they chat, and it's fine. And it's maybe a great hope, but you'd hope that one day we can actually use things like Twitter and Facebook to break down party lines and actually see the people for who they are and what they say, as opposed to some guarded, you know, PR message that they give out.
Yeah, John, have you ever friended anyone purely to get a story? Do you know journalists who do that? Because it seems that there's quite a lot of that going on.
You're talking about the cyber sense, or in the
cyber sense.
In the cyber sense.
Well, you're always pretending to be people's friends to get stories, aren't you?
No, it's always genuine, Russell. Absolutely, 100% genuine.
Well, on that note, because we are all 100% genuine and we're all friends, that's our show. Thanks to Noel McCarthy, Ben Gracewood and John Hartherveld. And thanks to you for watching. We'll be back with Media7 at the same time next week with some items of interest from AUT's Media, Investigative Journalism and Technology Conference. Until then, goodbye.